back. I'm Chris Evan, the CEO of Survival Dispatch and the host of Survival Dispatch News. Appreciate y'all joining us tonight. We have got a stacked panel. But before we get into that, I want to mention that tonight's episode is sponsored by our friends at Native Path. They've got this branch chain amino acid formula that is unlike any other BCAA I've ever tried before. Amazing hydration. There's some intel that they got from the U.S. Army as far as quality of hydration. And not to get too personal or too much information, but since I started drinking this, I only go to the bathroom one time during the night instead of 3 or 4 times. So I heavily endorse this product. We got a new sponsor, Sawyer, as well. These are the only water filters that have passed every single test we've thrown at it. Stay tuned for some upcoming information on Survival Dispatch Academy on these particular filters. And I want to mention that we just brought on CCW Safe as well. If you're looking for self-defense protection, they are the best choice that you could possibly make. All right, so let's bring the panel on here. Like I said, we have got a stacked panel tonight. And I'll go through and introduce most of the panel, but I'm going to have a couple people introduce themselves just so I make sure I don't do them any injustice. Got Craig from Stay Brewed Coffee beside me. We've got our in-house Mad Bomber Mike from delivering relief efforts in North Carolina. Our undercover intel guy, S2, he's posing as Kamala tonight. My good friend Jason Wilson from voteforamerica.org. So all y'all who've been watching us for the past few months, say every single night, please take somebody with you to the polls on November the 5th who you normally don't take. You can blame that one on Jason. He's the one who came up with the strategy, and he's the man. He's the reason we've been doing it. Beside him, we got Justin from Kahr Arms and his brother, Pastor Sean Moon, below him. Justin, I think I'll just have you introduce yourself to the Survival Dispatch audience.
Yeah, I'm the CEO of Kahr Firearms Group. You know, we own major brands like Auto Ordnance, Tommy Gun, Thompson, Desert Eagle, BFR, and that pretty much covers most of the stuff we own. And we do
I did not know that you guys own Desert Eagle.
Yeah, we own Desert Eagle.
That's awesome. Right on. Pastor?
Yes, sir. We have, I'm the head pastor of Rod of Iron Ministries, and we are based out of East Tennessee and also Pennsylvania. And we run a Freedom Festival, Rod of Iron Freedom Festival, every year in Eastern Pennsylvania. This year we had the honor of having General Flynn and Sebastian Gorka and Tom Homan, and wonderful folks, awesome speakers, great lineup. Craig was there with the coffee, keeping us all caffeinated. And, just very blessed to have a great community.
That's awesome. Yeah, they're good guys. We've worked with Tom Holman before, and that guy kills me. Did you all see when he spoke at Mar-a-Lago? And he said, on the first day that we get Trump back in, we're deporting all the Democrats, and on the second day, then we're going to go to work on the illegals.
I endorse that message.
Great strategy.
I saw a meme a couple of months ago that said that DEI stands for deport every illegal. And ever since then, I've been a really strong proponent of DEI. I mean, I can get behind that. But I wanted to show your homepage as well, Justin. For those of you who are not familiar with their pistols, it really, really high quality guns. And let me show you one. This is the billboard of one of two that they made specially for the Border 911 gallon, auctioned off. And if memory serves me right, the first one went for $12,000 and the second one for $13,000. Absolutely phenomenal. So Jason Wilson, I've got a bunch of articles pulled up here, but before I dive into them, I'd like to hear from you, since you're the man who did all of the legwork behind this, on many millions of gun owners and hunters that just don't vote. And by the way, we should mention you're out hunting with friends right now.
I am currently hunting with friends now with deer on the ground, so I won't be with y'all long tonight. But yeah, I'll be happy to tell you a little bit about Vote for America and where it came from.
Take it away.
So one of the things, I'm not a politician, I'm not a political advisor, but I do know how to sell products on the internet. We use influencers every day in my business, and we sell products using influencers. no one trusts the politicians anymore. No one trusts the media. But that influencer, and I shouldn't say influencer, a better description is a social media personality, just like Sean Hannity was a radio personality before he became a television personality. These people are personalities. They just use a different medium. They have exponentially larger audiences than CNN or Fox, and their viewers trust them. They have a 90% approval rating. So when I was approached, I'm like, yes, we can absolutely speak to the mid to low propensity voter from someone that they trust. And we did the research on who we wanted to target. We basically used 3,200 influencers, military, police, hunting, fishing, country music, etc. But you cannot get a mid to low propensity voter. Your traditional mailer, your email, your text message, those people are not going to respond to that, right? And one thing that we found early on in the research is it's 9 times easier to convince a voter that they have to find one person than it is to convince the non-voter of the importance of voting. So think about your gun owner, think about your Clint Eastwood character. You know, he's the dude with the no soliciting sign on his house, get off my yard, right? You're not going to a veteran's house, knocking on the door. You're not going, you're not going to, these people want to be left alone. That's what they want. So our goal with Vote for America was to influencers speak to their audience, speak to the voter, and convince the voter that they have to find one person. And once you did that, it's no longer a mailer, a television ad, or whatever. It's someone they know. It's someone that they served with, someone they go to church with. But it's someone personal that has a personal connection with them that's taking them to vote. And you're seeing people turn out the vote in numbers like never before. I think we're going to have huge numbers out of the gun owners, the hunters this time. But that's the basic principle behind Vote for America. We are a ground operation disguised as a social media campaign with the entire intention of using social media personalities to convince their audience to change America. You've got to find one person. And it's very important that when you look at something, if you want to change behavior, you have to first change perception. And if you want to change perception, you have to educate people. So, this is our first go round with Vote for America. So over the next 4 years, we're going to keep hammering away and explaining to people why it's important to you that you actually vote. And we're such a huge audience. If we actually stuck together, we would be one of the most powerful groups in America. But, we all want to be left alone. And this is my message to veterans, to hunters, and everybody. You want to be left alone. I get it. 365 days next year, you can be left alone. 364 days this year, you can be left alone as long as you take 1 hour out of one day to go and vote. We see these purple-haired freaks burning flags, this, that, and other that we can't stand. They can march on Saturday. They can do all they want. As long as we show up at the polls every 2 and every 4 years and crush them, we can be left alone. But if you don't, they're going to come for you, and it's going to be through regulation, and it's going to be through taxes, and it's divide and conquer. And as long as we are divided and we don't stand with one voice, they have the power. But when we stand up as a group, we're extremely powerful. So that's the basics. And I encourage everyone, if you've already early voted, find one person, take them to the polls Tuesday. If you haven't already early voted, grab a friend. Do not vote alone. Grab that one grumpy ass friend, Uncle Steve, make a day of it. I'm not talking about Aunt Pam that votes every election, right? When you and Aunt Pam go and vote, you're saving gas. We're trying to save America. You and Aunt Pam go grab Uncle Steve, grumpy Uncle Steve, and that's how we save America. But that's the basics behind Vote for America. And I think I'm going to be on with you guys again tomorrow night, Chris, and hopefully I'll have a lot more time.
Yeah, sounds good. Mike, just before we go to your question, we let Jason go. Just a quick question for you, Jason. Do you have any thoughts on why these people are disenfranchised, why they don't bother to vote?
So with the veterans have a plethora of issues that they're angry about. They're mad about Iraq. They're mad about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. They're frustrated with the VA. They feel betrayed in many cases. Hunters, I don't want to go to jury duty. That's one of the biggest things that you hear from hunters. And a lot of the states, the perception is that if you vote, you've got to go to jury duty. But a lot of the states, it's actually tied to your driver's license. But the perception is still that if I go vote, I'm going to have to go to jury duty. But that's one of the number one reasons that we get out of the hunting community. And then you get the people who have fallen victim to the propaganda. Like you never hear a purple-haired freak say my vote doesn't matter, or a cat lady say my vote doesn't matter. They spend tens of millions of dollars every cycle trying to convince us that our vote does not matter, that it's rigged. And where I've never heard the purple-haired freak or the cat lady, I've heard a hunter say it, I've heard a gun owner say it, I've heard a veteran say it. And we can be our own worst enemies at times.
So, Jason, before I let you go, I've got some stuff in the brief for tonight's episode that we were going to cover a little bit later. I'm not going to go in depth to it, but just to speak to your point as far as them trying to, like the enemies, the other side, the purple-haired freaks trying to disenfranchise our side. There's a pretty well-known story out of North Dakota in 2018 where the Democrat Party was saying, if you're a hunter, you don't want to vote because when you go and vote, you could lose your hunting licenses for other states that you go to. And then they had to apologize. They had to take down the campaigns off of social media. So you're right on the money there. And I guess just a generic point here that I shared with Mike and the boys earlier today. Cindy and I went to Sam's. It was packed. There was probably 1,000 people in there. By the time we left, I counted a grand total of 6 guys that I would be willing to go to war with. We went from there to Whole Foods, 0, Aldi's, 0. And I said to her, boy, howdy, are we in trouble? If we go to war with somebody right now,
we're in trouble.
Doc Pete, Lieutenant Colonel Doc Pete, our mutual friend, said to me, something like less than 30% of men under the age of 40 could pass the military physical requirements today. I'm going to say it's probably less than 10%. It's low. Right. But anyway.
Well, Mike, Chris, thanks for having me. I'm about to run, grab some deer off the ground, and I'll see y'all tomorrow, guys.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Mike, did you have something you want to throw in before we go to Justin? You're on mute. You're on mute, Mike.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't have any question. I was just claiming to be the called out a grumpy old vet. I was like, yes, here.
Oh. Right. Yes, and you do a fine job at that, let me say.
All right. Say I'm slacking.
There you go. So, Justin, I want to come to you. I appreciate Ken Nuss introducing all of us and get your thoughts on these disenfranchised voters. And I guess at this particular point in time, what can we do in the next, what do we have left, 72 hours to go? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as far as what we can do in this home stretch.
Well, I was hoping that you would inspire us because you're dealing with this every day and this is your topic. But yeah, we do have a serious challenge of how we get out the message to get out and vote in 48 hours. We certainly in our community have gone out and gone door to door, knocking on people's doors, trying to get them to the polls. We've worked with the Republican Party. We have a lot of volunteers in our community who do work for the party and who get, people registered. And we work with GOA and, of course, NRA and all the major gun groups. But it's a challenge. There's a lot of hunters in Pennsylvania, over 1 million. And probably 70% of them, stay home. And that's a big problem, which we have. And we're trying to work hard to get the numbers up. But hunters, they don't seem to understand the kind of crisis which our country is at this point. This could be our last democratic election. We could be facing permanent communism if the other side wins.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people are disenfranchised because they feel that the 2020 election was stolen, which I don't disagree with. But it's too bad Jason couldn't comment on this because he's got the numbers. But essentially what his message was, to me, going back several months, is that if we get those people to the polls, it doesn't stop the cheating that the other side's doing, but it negates it because they would have to have over 100% voter turnout to exceed the numbers. And so I that's the message we've been delivering for 3 months now, is that if you take somebody with you to the polls and we get those extra votes, it makes it really hard for them to cheat on a grand scale because, you're not going to get 80% of the people out to vote, let alone 120, 30, 40%, which happened in some precincts previously. Sean, I want to bring you into the conversation as well and get your thoughts on these disenfranchised voters and question to the entire panel, actually, but I'll start with Sean. We already got Justin's response. What do you think we can do in the next 48 to 72 hours to potentially save the day?
Well, I just want to give a big shout out to you, Chris, and Survival Dispatch. You have an amazing channel. We're huge fans of your work. But really, I just want to make a plea to the American people. You know, our father was free from a North Korean death camp in 1950. Our family was free from communism because of the U.S. Armed Forces. That's why we have freedom today. If the U.S. Armed Forces did not free our father from that death camp, Hungnam, which on the eastern side of the Korean Peninsula with MacArthur, we would not exist today and experience the God's gifts of freedom that we have here in America. They genocided our entire family once my father was freed from North Korea. Our entire tribe, our entire clan, the Moon family is wiped out. People do not understand in America what communism does. It is what my father always talked about as political Satanism. It is an actual apparatus of Satan on the earth. And it instantiates Satan's culture. It allows the killing of children, destruction of the family, destruction of marriage, the targeting of children, you name it. And you see all that degradation happening today. And so we are in a major crisis. We are, as our friend Lily Tang Williams, who's running for Congress up there in North New Hampshire right now. She's actually going viral because she was on a debate stage just destroying the leftists. But she grew up in Chinese communist in China under the CCP, and of course immigrated here and is now running for Congress, warning the American people that we are not in the early phases of communism. We are in the late stage. We're right before genocide. They've already done the polarization. They've already done the isolation phases. They've already done the phases where they've now determined who their enemies will be. The FBI has already labeled people as support President Trump or even Ron Paul as extremists, and they're on lists, and all of us are on lists. I mean, this is a serious apparatus that has assassination teams and engages in psyops and takes down governments worldwide. This is a very dangerous cabal of individuals, but they're not invincible. And so I just want to make a plea to the American people. Everybody watch this broadcast. We are fighting something much greater than flesh and blood, as the Bible says. We are fighting those principalities and powers, but they are not invincible. They are not invincible. God has called us for a time such as this. And look what he did. You may think that it is impossible. Your vote doesn't count, or that, whatever you do, it will just get stolen. And you may be right because, hey, let's be real. There's 50 million plus illegals in the country right now. How are we going to beat that? Dominion voting machines are already in operation in almost all the swing states. They can just switch numbers, easily be hacked. We know that. And also, the mail-in ballot issues are also a problem, which, the Trump team is fighting right now. So you have a lot of points on your side when you say, hey, my vote doesn't matter, or what can I do that make a difference? But let me just offer this to you. Look what God has done with President Trump. The man had a 3,400 foot per second bullets flying at his face. And with a small turn of 15 degrees, the man is still alive and leading the MAGA movement. That was clearly God's hand. And the statistical odds of that is, some say, 1 over a trillion. Now, if you say, okay, you may be right. We have 99.9%. We may lose maybe 0.1%. That we possibly can get past the cheating, the 50 million illegals that will vote, et cetera, all that kind of thing. I would just say, look, God has shown up in a mighty fashion. He has done a greater statistical odds than 0.1. He's done 0.000001, and we just all witnessed it. The whole world did. So I just want to encourage the viewers and listeners out there. You matter, and God has chosen you for a time as this. You are essential in this fight. President Trump is just a man. He's not the Messiah. He's not Jesus. He's just a man like you and me, flesh and blood. But we have to be the hands and feet of God. So I am just pleading with you, because I know y'all are good people and you're wonderful red-blooded Americans who love freedom and love our country. I'm just begging you, please, on Tuesday, I'll come pick you up, okay? But just get up and get out to vote. Take a friend, like Jason was saying. We got to win this, folks. This could be our last Democratic election. We are cascading into World War III and the crash of the dollar. So much danger is on the line. The entire world is on the line. And I have children. I have 9 grandchildren. I want them to have a future. So if it's not for me, you know, or anybody on this planet, please, for the children, for the grandchildren, let's make that time 1 hour on Tuesday to get out and get Trump. And we get Elon, we get Ron Paul is now in the mix. We get Tulsi Gabbard, we get RFK with Maha, and you know the Amish are also out voting. Over 200,000 Amish in Pennsylvania have been registered. Well, that's unprecedented, and they're people that want to be left alone too, and we get it. But they came after the Amish, so I'm just begging you because the globalists and the New World Order people, those crazy international communists, they won't let you hunt. They won't let you have guns. And, you know, you can vote your way into socialism, but the only way out is to shoot your way out. And that's really messy. And that's, as all the combat vets will testify, that is really hellish thing. And if we can miss it, if we can avoid that, please, I beg you, I'm praying for you. And I thank you so much that all of you are listening on this broadcast. That already shows that you're taking action. That already shows you're already being prepared. So, hey, if we can avoid a huge disaster, that's definitely part of preparedness. If we can avoid a great disaster and have a potential in the future, I'm begging for that. I'm praying for that. And I know everybody, all Americans are coming together, and we're going to win this if we stand together. So God bless y'all, and God bless the work you're doing, Chris, and the whole panel. Thank you guys so much for having us.
Sean, that is one of the most eloquent speeches I've heard on trying to motivate people to go vote. And I see Mike putting his hands up here. I have a couple quick comments, and whoever goes next, I'm sorry that you have to follow Sean, but it is what it is, because that was a very passionate and well said, Sean. By the way, send me your PayPal. I'll shoot you that $100 for saying all the nice stuff about me earlier. I want to make one comment that's not a joke, and actually two quick comments. Number one, the Maha with RFK speaks to what I just mentioned today. As far as I don't typically go shopping, you know, with my wife, and what I saw today, it's not like I've been blind to it, but I was pretty astonished. I just said, we're in deep, deep trouble if we go to war and we get invaded. And the next point was, and I shared this with some of the guys in our private chat that we have at Survival Dispatch. I'm walking through Sam's today, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, you're that guy from Survival Dispatch." And that doesn't happen very often. I mean, we have a decent following, but we're not like Sean Ryan or anything like that. And he proceeds to tell me that he was a commando in the Iranian army when the revolution happened. And there were 300 of them that were captured by the Ayatollah's guys. And they brought them into this room 5 at a time and shot them and killed them. And when they brought him and 4 other individuals into this room, the guards left, and you had a senior commander who had a robe on, but he had a suit, I guess, underneath it. And when he went to grab his pistol, it got stuck between the suit and the robe. And the 5 guys were able to overpower him and run away. And they're the only 5 out of those 300 that survived. And he managed to find his way here to America. His whole family was slaughtered, his entire family, everybody. And it dawned on me at the time, because he kept repeating himself to me. By the way, he graduated from Embry-Riddle, which is the astronaut university in Daytona Beach, just south of us. I mean, you don't get in there. You have to be very smart to get in there, let alone graduate. But he kept saying to me, I hope you Americans understand we're not bad people. And I totally agree with that. Look at the stuff that our government has done around the world, and then people hate America, but they don't know the people who are on this panel. They don't know the rest of Americans who are very generous and love and care for other people. It just struck me, Sean, with you discussing communism in Korea and the fact that y'all are here, that the vast majority of people are really good people. It's the people who have the power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So it's astonishing, but it was a really interesting conversation. I may actually have him on Survival Dispatch if I can talk him into it. He said there's still death threats against him from the Iranian government, believe it or not, but really interesting guy. So, Mike, I'm sorry, you draw the short stick. You get to go next.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have got a great bit of things that we can do. And the very first thing is to get back on our schedule and read the conflicted question of the day that everybody's been asking me for. That, and you, while I'm doing this, you need to get onto there and dump that troll that I was telling you about.
Oh, I didn't see that. Which platform?
Because you never look at the signal messages that I send you while we're doing this.
Don't pick on the guy with one eye. Come on now.
Oh, I'm telling you. See, everybody, this is what I deal with. This is what I deal with right here. All right, the conflicted question of the day. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to read this. We're going to get our emotional reps in on this one, everybody. All right, so get your cheese centered. Just a few hours ago, martial law was declared in your state. Through your network, you learned that the local police and military have begun door-to-door confiscation of firearms for purposes of keeping the peace. Within the day, they will be in your neighborhood. With your specific personal and group preparations in mind, how would you organize and handle the coming gun confiscation? All right. But it doesn't matter, because we're going to repeat this question at the end of the show, and then that's when we're all gonna answer it. So this gives you a chance to think about it.
All right, so you win that one, but you still have to follow Sean and give us your thoughts on, especially being a veteran yourself,
right,
on disenfranchised veterans. I mean,
I
don't disagree. Like it pisses me off to see all the cheating as well, and sometimes it seems like we just go from bad to worse. But if you don't vote, you don't have much of a, platform to argue on, right?
Well, so very many of us, we would cast our ballots while we were overseas, and then we'd always wind up being told, hey, the military drugged their feet on getting them there, and they didn't show up on time. And over and over and over all the time, man. It just absolutely ridiculous, stupid. You get disenfranchised with the whole thing, and you just throw up your hands and say, well, I'm going to be working for the same idiots either way. What difference does it make? So it builds apathy after a while. So yeah, but now, honestly, I think the veteran movement here in the U.S. is actually really picking themselves up this year and saying, no more of this. We're sick and tired of getting beat up by the VA. We're sick and tired of being ignored by the VA. We're, the first person to do anything to the VA ever was Donald Trump. I'm sorry, but he broke the back of their union, and unfortunately this knucklehead who came in rehired all those people that got fired, who like to leave us sitting off to the side. And if you haven't been to the VA before, you don't know anything about socialized healthcare. Trust me, you do not want it. All right. But in this case, I'll tell you what, if that dude can fix the VA, he's got every vote of mine forever. Call me a single issue voter, but I don't care.
Well said, Mike. Craig next, and then I'll go to S2, and then I'm going to pull up some articles for us to discuss as a group.
So the conversations have to happen, right, to get people who, I think Jason put it well, they just want to be left alone, right? The hunters, the blocks of people that are not taking an interest in the politics or the voting or the government or the bureaucracies, and they're disenfranchised and they're disillusioned, maybe a little bit demoralized, which is really the purpose. Demoralization is really the purpose of the kind of government that we have. Their hooks are in, right? We're deeply infiltrated. I mean, as far as the Bill of Rights go and the Constitution, we're pretty well infringed, boys. There's certain things we can't even say right now, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and one of those things is about, the kind of day that it might be outside, which has to be frustrating for people who don't know how to start conversations without talking about the weather, right? So we can't even talk about that. We can't talk about certain viruses. We can't talk. So we're infiltrated. And I don't believe that and hunters are one category, right? But there's lots of categories where people are not taking an interest in the direction of the country. And that doesn't mean that they're safe, right? The people who are not taking an interest are at the whim of people who do take an interest. And those people, are in there.
So I think, all of us in general that are in the survival dispatch universe would be textbook lowercase L libertarians, not capital L. Those guys are cuckoo. But this strategy that we've employed for many years of, I don't care what you do, just leave me alone. We can't continue down that path, because all they've done is just push and taken more and more and more. And if this gets us, gets the video taken down, so be it. It's got to be said, up until 2018, even the World Health Organization, that's as crooked as a dog's hind leg, classified transgenderism as a mental illness. And now we're being told that we have to participate in this mental illness. So we've gone from not having any care to all of a sudden, if you tell me that you need to be called she, her, whatever, I'm the bad guy if I don't conform to your, delusions. And that all came about from saying, just leave me alone. I don't care what you do behind closed doors. I don't care what you do as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. Just do what you want. That's not going to cut it anymore. So, and I think that's the gist of what you're getting at, right, Craig?
Right. You had a conversation or a panel the other day on the mental illness aspect.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more that could be said about that, and that was the homosexual movement being infiltrated by the Marxist movement, which
right.
is about perpetual revolution. Right? They infiltrate, they agitate, and then they take it over, and now you have sub movements that have moved outside of that, like gays against groomers, right? So now you have the Marxist movement that used the gay movement of equal rights and all, turned it into a big civil rights issue, and the perpetual revolutionists continued to pervert.
And I agree, Craig. I just want to throw out an anecdotal example. Cindy and I have a friend, we have a home in North Georgia in the mountains, and we have a friend in that area, and she's been, very vocal that she's part of the gay community for many, many years, but not in a pushy type of way. And we drove down to one of the state parks, and we were talking one day, and she said, you know what? I'm absolutely disgusted by what these transgender people are doing to the gay community, because now we're getting tarred and feathered by all the stuff that they say and all the stuff that they do. So
right, they use them. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. They've infiltrated them and they use them. Exactly. All right, S2, save the best for last. I know that you've got some pretty strong thoughts on this subject, but people that are disenfranchised, hunters, gun owners, veterans, what are your thoughts? You're a pretty smart guy. How do we get those people energized over the next 48 to 72 hours to try to push this thing over the finish line?
I think at this point we've done going out and talking to the people that own guns. Most of the people that I know, in fact, all of the people that I know that own guns are going out to vote. So, there's not a whole lot that I personally in that front can do. But I think over the next couple days, conversations with people that that don't vote, go down the street. There's also problems not only with just gun owners that don't vote. There's problems with people that are elderly people that are shut-ins that either don't have a way to get there or whatever. Go find a couple of those people in your neighborhood. I'm sure they exist. Mm-hmm. And you probably know they're, on my street, I can at least count 2 of them that are like that they don't go anywhere. They don't drive. They're too old to drive, so they don't drive anywhere. They rely on their kids to come over and give them everything and take them places. So those are some of the people that I would be looking for in my neighborhood. Other people can do the same thing, but I have to agree with everything Sean said. And, he has second generation experience with communism. Most of us on this panel have been screaming this for years, and nobody's listened. And now we're sitting at the precipice, and we're at the edge of the abyss, and we're looking in. And all it's going to take is this good, strong breeze to blow us over the edge. So that's about all I can say about that.
I don't disagree. I had a quick comment with regards to people who physically are unable to get themselves to the polls. A good friend of mine, Lane Kelly, was a paramedic for many years in Bradley County, Tennessee, which is Cleveland, Tennessee, just north of Chattanooga. And somebody made a comment. We were at a cookout, of all the excitement that he must have at work. And he said, that's very little. He said 95% of what we do is patient transfer. And it's people who weigh 400, 500, 600 plus pounds. And they have somebody who enables them as far as taking them food, but can't take them to the doctors, the hospitals, all their appointments. And that was 95% of their workload. So I was talking to Alex from Jump Medic, makes bags. They make medical bags, but he's a paramedic full time as well in Oregon. And he's in his mid 30s. He said that when he started, it was the same thing. It was like 95% patient transports and 5% wrecks and stuff like that. And he said now it's 90% drug overdoses because they've legalized drugs in Oregon. And it's so bad that his entire family is moving somewhere in the South here. They're looking for, property in the Carolinas or Tennessee, but it's just incredible. So I got a handful of websites that I'm going to pull up here, and I'm going to blow through them fairly quickly because they're all on the same type of topic, and I don't want to beat it to death. But what I do want to show is, and again, I'm not trying to brag on Jason's behalf, but him and his partner, Baxter, have done a phenomenal job of getting the word out. When he said 3,200 influencers, creators, he's not kidding. By the way, Nemiton, $20. Thank you very much. We can't tell you how much we appreciate your support. So I'm going to blast through these, right? So American Hunter, this story is based on Vote for America. And the next one, guns.com, of course, everybody's familiar with it. You don't have to scroll very far down before you find out that this is Vote for America right there. And then we go to the next one, Shooting News Weekly. And you don't have to scroll down very far, and you find that this is Vote for America again, right there. And then even the New York Post, spoke out with regards to mobilizing apathetic hunters and gun owners. And you scroll down, and who's there? Vote for America. And this one, though, from Wyoming, is kind of one of the few positive stories that I found in this. But I believe you asked too that it's okay in your area. But there have been some people have been very proactive in Wyoming to get the disenfranchised hunters and gun owners to come and vote. But this one again, right there, voteforamerica.org. And the last one here is owned by a good friend of all of ours. And Sean and Justin, you may have met Kyle Reyes at the Border 911 Gala. He owns Law Enforcement Today, amongst other online assets, plus a marketing company. This website here gets over 100 million impressions a month, by the way. So he does a phenomenal job getting the word out. Want to quickly mention that there are other parties. It's not just Vote for America. There's Hunt the Vote. These guys have helped people get registered and find their polling stations. Another one's called Shoot the Vote. And I just realized that I didn't bring up those couple there. There's the Law Enforcement Today. My apologies. I'm trying to get through this section as fast as I can so we can get on to the next stuff. Here's Hunt the Vote. My apologies. And here's Shoot the Vote. So we'll pivot from there. And I want to come back to Pennsylvania in particular, Justin. So we're seeing a lot of news coming out of Pennsylvania that they're purposely understaffing polling stations. I saw some people yesterday waited in line for 12 hours and they were told, yeah, we're closing, you can't vote. So what I wish Jason was still on here for, because he could give you the right numbers. So don't bank on my numbers, but he shared some stuff with me. When we see these polls that say it's neck and neck in Pennsylvania or even neck and neck nationally, typically what it is oversampling of Democrats, right? So 50% Democrats, 20-30% Republicans, 20% independents. But the numbers he showed me show that Trump has an actual lead of 7 to 10 points, if memory serves me right, in Pennsylvania. It's still pretty close. And I'm curious, with you being in Pennsylvania, have you heard anything firsthand? Did you early vote? What are your thoughts on them basically constraining, not providing enough resources for people to actually get out and vote in PA?
Well, in 2020, there was massive cheating. I mean, on election night, Trump was ahead by 600,000 votes. 600,000.
Yeah.
That suddenly disappeared over the course of a week. And there were actually 270,000 more votes than there are registered voters in Pennsylvania. And that came in like at midnight in one of these train loads of fake ballots, which caused a vertical jump in terms of votes for Biden. And so we had a massive amount of cheating in 2020. And the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania said you don't even need to date it, the postmark it, doesn't matter when votes come in, it still gets counted. No serial number, no signature verifications. All this crazy stuff happened in 2020. The good thing is that since 2020, there have been groups and organizations in Pennsylvania which have been chipping away at this voter fraud machine. So we've won some victories, and we've been able to get serial number signature verification. We've been able to get, basically all the mail-in votes have to be in by election day. And so we've gotten some major reforms, and also, all this cheating being discovered before the election, and the Trump campaign suing those organizations which are involved with fraud is creating an environment where it's more difficult to cheat than it was in 2020. So all those signs, when I see that in the press, I'm kind of hopeful that maybe, cross our fingers, maybe they're able to have 400,000 fraudulent votes, but Trump wins by 1 million votes this time, so we still come out ahead. That's what we're hoping for. And there's a lot of awareness among people in Pennsylvania that our vote was stolen, our election was stolen, and so there's a lot of people motivated to get out and vote this time to make sure that we bring Pennsylvania home for Trump. And so I'm hopeful that we can pull it off.
Refresh my memory, Justin. Who controls the legislature in PA right now?
Well, it's split. We still hold the Senate, but the Democrats have taken over the House because that midterm cycle, it seemed like the whole cheating regime all throughout the country was pushing hard, because we had a lot more conservatives come out and vote than it showed in that election. But I think we've started to close the gap. The mail-in voting, early voting between the Democrats and Republicans right now, that gap has been closed by over 50%. So we've made a lot of progress in solving this problem here. But there are still large hurdles to overcome in Pennsylvania, because the machine is so entrenched, and they cheat in every level possible. And so hopefully we can close the gap enough that Trump's popularity can pull it through, and we will be victorious for Trump in a few days.
Hopefully, I want to give credit as well to Scott Pressler, who has done an absolutely phenomenal job of getting people registered in Pennsylvania. The guy, I saw a quote from him the other day ago that he said, "I am so exhausted, I'm ready to collapse, but I got to get this thing pushed all the way through." He has been relentless. So it's been phenomenal. The reason I asked you with regards to the legislature is because there's a clause in the Constitution. We covered it a couple days ago with Noel Fritz from National File that actually allows state legislators to send whatever electoral college votes they want to the federal tally. And it wouldn't be very popular, of course, and it'd probably be used as a weapon in both directions. But Noel did a great job of explaining way back in the day when it was hard to get information across the country before we had telegraphs and stuff like that. People would, go by horse and buggy across the country to bring in all the electoral college votes to Washington, D.C. And he said it was actually quite common back then that the legislature, they would pick who they thought was the best for their state. And it didn't matter what anybody voted. And it doesn't. It's in the Constitution. That's why I was curious. So clearly that can't unfold in Pennsylvania. I got one more question for you, just because it's relative to PA. What on earth happened with John Fetterman? The guy was a complete vegetable, somehow gets elected to the Senate, and then he had a stroke, and all of a sudden he comes back and he's like a, JFK conservative Democrat, and he's in PA, correct?
Yeah, he's in PA. I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, he said a lot of stuff which seemed to be very MAGA and very pro-Trump lately. Maybe
Exactly.
Helped him get his brain to function better. He looks a little bit different than he when he first took office too. Some people wonder whether it's a body double, but he certainly does seem more coherent these days.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. Sean, are you in PA as well?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm here right now. Yep.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on John Fetterman as well, because I mean, it seems like he could be running on the Republican ticket. He'd probably get a ton of votes.
Yeah, it was interesting because he was on the Joe Rogan show, and he was talking about, basically he didn't believe the Russian collusion hoax and all that kind of stuff. So it's very interesting. Yeah, it may have joggled his brain a little bit, so he's thinking straight. Sorry, I had to move to plug in my phone here. I'm low on battery. Sorry about that.
No apology necessary at all, Sean. Have you had any, just like I asked your brother Justin, have you had any conversations with people who've been to the polls and they couldn't get in to vote or anything along those lines? Did you vote yourself early? If so, did you have any problems yourself?
I moved down to Tennessee, but we've been on the MAGA. We did like a prayer tour with our church, and different members of our church, both from Korea and Japan, also flying in to pray for America. And we've been to 20 MAGA rallies since the RNC. We have this big Trump truck, and the Trump folks really get us right up to the front of the venue, and we're just able to pray and play music. I also do like MAGA rapping as well. I had the #2 album on the rap Amazon charts, so I was blessed. Glory to God. I was, it's just patriotic music, no profanities, etc. But we just go there to try to encourage the folks and thank them, and just try to get the message out that your vote matters, you matter, and it is essential to understand that they put in billions of dollars to make you feel like you don't matter, and whatever you do, you can't beat this giant machine. But the machine is not invincible. Evil only flourishes because good men don't do anything. They sit and watch. And so it's interesting because when good men and women start standing up against the machine, it really starts crumbling much quicker than we anticipated. It's an illusion of power, and so I think it's very, Satan is the father of lies. He likes to have the illusion of strength, the illusion of goodness, the illusion of power, etc. But in the end, he's a coward. He's a loser from the beginning, a loser at the end, and God wins. And we have the spirit of 1776. We have the spirit of God within us, that is yearning for freedom. We are not trying to be tyrants. We are not trying to oppress people. We want people to be free. And that is a spirit of God's love. And so I believe in the American people. I believe, Pennsylvania is standing strong. Shout to Scott Presley. We see him like at all the MAGA rallies. The guy is he's a real phenomenal activist. And all the folks in PA is the Keystone State. So if PA can, deliver for the country, we can take this thing, but it really takes everybody participating and believing, that they matter, because you really do. Don't believe the lies of Bill Gates and the money of George Soros that tells you you are not you don't matter. You matter. Your vote matters. Your voice matters. And it may seem like you're fighting against the entire matrix and the entire the empire, like in a Star Wars metaphor. But each one of us has the spirit of God, and that's really what the evil workers of iniquity don't have. They don't have spirit. All they have is the lust for power. We have the spirit of God in us. We love people. We love God. We love people. We want people to be free and have the freedom to be able to choose God and choose life and choose family and choose goodness. And, I believe the American people are rising up at this hour, in a giant wave to deliver this to the country and save our country.
So a couple of quick comments before we move on. Number one, Sean, could you text me a link to your music so we can put it up here before the podcast ends so we can steer our audience towards that, number one. Number two, just on your comment with regards to our side, really genuinely caring about people. We've been commenting on Survival Dispatch News for a long time that the other side, call them whatever you want, woke, progressives, whatever. There's a lot of very miserable, very unhappy people. There's a high predominance of taking SSRIs. And on our side, it's the exact opposite. There's a lot of love, but there's also a lot of levity as well. I mean, for Trump to joke about the assassination attempts against him is probably the best example. And we do it all the time on Survival Dispatch News. There's bad stuff happening every day, but we still seem to be able to crack a smile and, you know, get a laugh out of it, sort of thing. But I'm going to move to a story I alluded to earlier, North Dakota. And then Mike, we'll keep the same order. I'll come to you, then Craig, then S2 on that. So let me just pull this up. And I'm not sure that everybody is aware of this. And the only reason I'm aware of it is because one of my contacts in North Dakota had let me know when this was happening 6 years ago. But essentially, this happened in 2018. As you can see, this is November 1st, 2018. And this is with regards to the North Dakota Democratic Party running ads on Facebook trying to discourage hunters from voting. And it basically said that if you have out-of-state hunting licenses and you vote in North Dakota, there's a good chance that you're going to lose your hunting license in those other states. And I mean, it was a bald-faced lie at the end of the day. And this was the lady behind it right here. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but she was, you know, on the Democrat ticket. And I don't know what the result of that was for her, but either way, there was actually, in this article, they report that there were 2 ads released by them trying to discourage people. And so here's Snopes, which of course is a mouthpiece for the left. And they looked into it, just like the very fine people hoax and Donald Trump. They finally did the right thing and declared that it was false, that if you were a hunter in North Dakota and you vote, that you would not lose your voting rights in other states. So, Mike, you've been tied up with relief efforts in North Carolina, which is a very, you know, it's an awesome thing, very American thing to do.
Actually, over in Sean's AO in Eastern Tennessee.
It's phenomenal. It's awesome what you guys have been doing. So you've missed a few panels that we've had on the topic of media licenses and broadcast licenses. And we now have in our media, they can say anything that they want. And there are no issues as far as their broadcast license is concerned. And so since you weren't on those panels, I want to hear your opinion on, as a libertarian, right? Lowercase L libertarian. We don't want more government. We don't want more laws, but something has to stop these arms of propaganda, the mainstream media that can just publish whatever lies that they want. And people read the headline and then they parrot it. Give me your thoughts as a libertarian on, you know, if we get Trump back in office, do you think we should do something about broadcast licenses, like 3 strikes you're out? And if so, who's the arbiter of truth?
Yeah, see, that's the problem. I don't believe we should do anything about that. I'd love to see things change, but the people need to change it. The community needs to change it. The government needs to have no say-so in that, because we have a First Amendment. I don't care if they're plopping trash out there. So did who was at the National Enquirer for decades when we were kids. Right. Whatever. You know what? They're garbage. Everybody knows they're garbage. Let's just go on ahead and relegate them into the dustbin of history and be happy with it. But the government should have no say-so in this whole matter. None.
Fair enough. Craig, same question for you. Same question for S2. Then Justin, I'll come back to you, and Sean, same question as well. I want to get your thoughts on the propaganda arm of the globalist line through their media outlets. Craig?
Well, that's been their MO, right? Is to infiltrate the media, Mockingbird media. They've done that, and I'm with Mike on this. I think we need to make government smaller in a lot of areas. Absolutely, I don't think they should have any say so in this whatsoever, but you guys have been, in some of your recent panels, you've been hitting on the advantages of the podcasts like Joe Rogan and media like this and different areas of media. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong if that's not been you, but I think you've been hitting on the irrelevance of legacy media when it comes to these podcasts and these interviews and getting that message out, because everybody's fed up with the media and they're lying. They've been caught too many times, right? We know they're infiltrated. We know it's propaganda. They know it. We know it. We all know it. They continue to do it. And then Soros comes in and invests or buys, what is it? It buys several hundred licenses, radio stations,
conservative talk radio stations.
Conservative talk radios. Yeah. So it's obviously important, but the people need to be in charge of that.
I got a question for you. You know, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. And it seems to me the mainstream media, they just keep the same plays over and over again. And we saw it unfold in the past 48 hours where they doctored the video up to make it appear that Donald Trump was saying that Liz Cheney should be assassinated, shot by a firing squad of 9 people. And then the guy who supposedly broke that story had to go on multiple mainstream media news outlets and do a mea culpa and say that he made it up. And but the problem with this, and again, everybody will have a chance to comment on this, is that the Democrats don't care if something's true. All they want to do is get the headline once so that their minions can parrot the same thing over and over again. And so, for example, Donald Trump wasn't shot. Christopher Wray sitting in front of Congress. Well, Donald Trump wasn't shot. We think it was debris from the teleprompter or a hand railing. And 48 hours later, they had to release a letter that said that Christopher Wray was wrong. From the FBI, it said, Christopher Wray spoke out of turn and Donald Trump was shot. But it didn't matter because all the left-wing media outlets, which is pretty much all of them, and their followers just kept repeating, oh, Donald Trump wasn't shot. That's bullshit. So anyway, do you have anything else you want to add before I move on to S2, Craig?
No, those are good points. But they came back and they conceded the point and they had to look, they're silly, right, for doing that.
It's the same thing as Donald Trump's a convicted felon. Well, number one, no, he's not, because you're not convicted until you've been sentenced. Okay. Right. And number two, the stuff with Merchan will never stick because all kinds of reasons, but especially because his instructions to the jury said, if 4 of you vote to convict on one count and 4 on another count and 4 on a third, we'll just add that up. We'll count 12. And that's a conviction, which is not the way our legal system works. But S2, I'm going to bring up the chart that we had up, or the diagram we had up a couple days ago, because it puts the mainstream media into context here. But same question to you that I posed to Mike and Craig, and then again, Justin and Sean will have a chance to address it, as far as should mainstream media have their feet held to the fire and potentially lose their broadcast licenses when they repeatedly lie.
Mainstream media should cease to exist, period. If they want to exist, then they need to fire everybody and start over. But that's not going to happen because the people that are at the top of the food chain are the ones that control the money. And it's not even them. They're even like the Rupert Murdochs of the world and the George Soroses of the world. They're not even close to being at the top of the food chain. They want to be, but they're not. As I've said before, and we mentioned this the other day, there's a group of people called the Committee of 300. Mm-hmm. And they are absolutely the ones that control what's going on through manipulation. They just have this well-oiled machine that's been developed for the last 75 years that they've managed to put in place. And the thing that still baffles me to this day is, why now? Why all of a sudden? Because it really did happen all of a sudden when they put Biden in office. I mean, it was just boom, there's everything right in your face. Why now? Other than the fact that Trump put a wrench in their monkey put in their plans back. I don't know how long he set them back, but I know that what the things that he did and the things that he put in place, he set them back drastically, and now they're having to accelerate their plans. And that was the big mistake they made, is they spent so long boiling the frog that all of a sudden they turned the heat up too high, and the frog decided it was going to jump out. And that's, if I had to say that was the one miracle that we got out of COVID among many, that was probably the most prominent one that I could think of. But as far as mainstream media, yeah, they're no longer relevant as far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of other people I know are concerned. In fact, I can't tell you the last time I even watched Sean Hannity, because Sean Hannity's part of that. He's part of that machine also. You know,
Yeah.
he does nothing even on his radio show. I noticed a long time ago he had a pattern of behaviors. He would repeat things in his show over and over and over and over again, and pretty much sound like he was whining about it the entire time. It was like, dude, move on to another subject, but he just wouldn't let it go. And it was that same pattern of behavior that I recognized out of him that I was starting to see out of other places. So, yeah, they with the rise of the Tucker Carlsons and the Steve Bannons and all of those that are starting to make their way out onto the airwaves now via streaming video, I don't think the mainstream media is going to be a useful tool for them much longer.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Good answer, S2. Justin, I want to come back to you. So I know this is a bit of an eye test with this chart up there. Essentially, what happened is one of our loyal followers, Chuck Allen, sent me this diagram, and I was having a discussion with Todd Callender. Todd's the federal level attorney who sued the DOD and Lloyd Austin over the injections. Took it all the way to SCOTUS. He was the lead attorney. There were 51 attorneys on it. He owns Cloud Hub. He's the CEO of a global insurance company bigger than Berkshire Hathaway. And he laughed and he said, yeah, check out this slide deck that Doc Pete and I presented to the government in Croatia, but they never invited us back. And it was the exact same chart. And it basically shows, you know, where you have all of the layers of this propaganda machine, for lack of a better term. So I'd love to hear your opinion, Justin, as far as, should the mainstream media have their feet held to the fire when they repeatedly tell lies that are, you know, pursuing this agenda of divide and conquer, if nothing else?
Well, the mainstream media is basically propaganda, and I think most Americans, almost all Americans, understand that. But, you know, there are a lot of reasonable Americans who see that propaganda, and they also see the communization of our country and the, you know, totalitarian left and the dictatorship taking over. And their reaction to this coming tyranny is like, it should be 1776, but there's a big portion of America which is actually saying, I better join these tyrants, otherwise they're going to roll over me. And I think that's one of the problems we face, is that people take this propaganda and they say, okay, I'm going to, if you tell me it's black and it's, you know, that white statue is black, then I'm going to believe that it's black because I don't want to get into trouble. And we have to understand that when communism takes over, nobody's safe. They're going to genocide at least a quarter of the population. And they'll probably start with all the preppers.
So, Justin, were you all born in Korea or were you born here?
I was born in Korea. I came over with my dad in 73.
Okay.
But yeah, if you look at, you know, North Korea or even Chinese communism or Russian communism, they all had genocides, and they target like 30% of the population to genocide. It's not like a few 100,000 people. I mean, in America, it'd be like 60 million people would be genocided.
And by the way, I didn't ask you that question because it matters from a personal perspective. I just wanted to know if you grew up at all with communism in your life. I mean, you're clearly a very patriotic American, and absolutely the type of, we need more people like you here. I don't know if you are you familiar with Byrna by chance, the less lethal devices?
Vaguely familiar. I can't say that I'm too familiar with that. But yeah, I mean, if they're gonna come, if we have communism here and they're knocking on your door to get your guns, if they take your guns, you're going to death camp. So you have a choice. You can either go out in the pile of brass, or that you can go out in the oven.
So the reason I mention that is the CMO CRO, so the chief marketing officer and chief revenue officer for Berna, his name's Luan Pham, and his family's from Vietnam. And literally, as the communists were taking over South Vietnam, his family escaped here to America. It was 1975. He was 5 or 6 years old. I kid you not, he is the most patriotic, hardcore redneck American I have ever met in my life. He made millions of dollars in the software industry, retired at 35 years old. His buddy becomes the CEO of Berna and says, I need your help. We got to build this thing up. And he said, no, I don't want to go back to work. Now he works 7 days a week, but it's that's the kind of immigration that we had for many, many years here in America, and it's radically changed. So I don't want to take us down that rabbit hole, but we're glad to have you here. But let me put it that way. I mean,
thank you. Appreciate it.
We need more Americans that are of your mindset. So, Sean, I got to ask you about the mainstream media from the perspective of Vice is a brutal left-wing mouthpiece. They lie through their teeth about everything. They did a hit piece on you on I'm trying to remember exactly what it said. Maybe you recall. I think Rolling Stone and Vice did a hit piece on you, if memory serves me right. It's been a couple of days since I looked at it, but they said you were the pastor who worshipped AR-15s or something ridiculous like that. But
yes, right. They call it a church of the AR-15.
There you go. So I mean, they purposely went after you to try and assassinate your reputation. So I really want to hear your opinion on that sort of thing.
Well, the Vice was, that's a Soros funded. They were bankrupt multiple times. Right. They were rebooted by Soros. And so it's a really left-wing propaganda, use young people to get that media out. But just really, it's a propaganda machine, Operation Mockingbird. And of course, legacy media is the same thing. They're totally, it's just propaganda. It's like watching North Korean TV or something. And thank God President Trump is suing CBS $10 billion for doctoring Kamala's the interview answers that she's been giving. So he's taking steps against them. But it's so unbelievable. They're dying. General Flynn was talking about it's a new generation. President Trump is bringing like the generation of the podcast media. So instead of just having all the legacy media in the press room, Flynn is suggesting that President Trump should have Joe Rogan and, different podcasts, Sean Ryan and all these people as actual news, because they're getting way more information out to the people, and they're not censoring the information like the news in a one-sided way, which is meant to demoralize, the patriots and make us feel atomized and isolated. And so the legacy media is totally dying. People are waking up. People are now, aware of all the powers of the money that is put into the propaganda and the control of information. Look what they did to Alex Jones. And it's just, I think people are waking up. But again, like taking action is that critical step. We may know that the apparatus is against us, but we really have to take action. We have to believe that we matter. And that demoralization has happened so deep, runs so deep in so many different parts of the American people, that we got to find ourselves once again. And I really feel we got to get back and find that fire once again. I think it's there. I think it's coming up again. But I just want to encourage everybody out there, this is our chance to really kick Bill Gates and Soros and the Rothschilds and the BIS and all them, all the globalist apparatus, the 666 Antichrist beast system, to give it a swift kick in the what. So I think, we're just praying. We're praying that everybody is activated and mobilized and is energized to get out there and vote for President Trump.
So I couldn't find the Rolling Stone article, but I found the one on Vice here. And I got to tell you, Sean, I'm jealous. I mean, you've clearly made an impact, left a mark. I mean, that's a badge of honor as far as I'm concerned. See, even Mike is giving you a hand. Well done. Absolutely. Well done. So the next one I want to share before we go back to the at hand, I don't know if you all caught this or not, but Russia sued Google in a Russian court. Of course, Google didn't defend themselves, and they fined them 20.5 decillion, which is more than the entire world's GDP. And it doubles every day until the channels that they deleted, like RT, Russia Today, are restored. I mean, Vladimir Putin cracks me up sometimes. I'm not saying that I worship him or that I'm a Russian asset or whatever, but this is a pretty spectacular court judgment they put against him here. Anyway, I'll reel it back. Actually, does anybody want to comment on that before I move on to the next part back on hunters? No? Okay. I thought it was pretty comical myself.
I made Russian
That's amazing.
assets.
I've said this before. I'll say it again, though, quickly, because I haven't said it to Sean and Justin. I don't know if I've said it to Craig or not. But if you had told me even 5 or 6 years ago that my beliefs and my values would be more in line with Vladimir Putin than the president of the United States, I would have said you're crazy. But, you know, they're the second largest Christian nation in the world. He's 100% nuclear family and anti everything else that's ripping our country apart. I never thought that day would come, but lo and behold, here it is. So I got a couple final.
I 100% agree. Trump was friends with Putin, and I don't feel as America we don't have to be enemies with Putin. Why do we have to be enemies with Putin? You know, we could be allies and destroy the CCP. You know, isolate the CCP. You know, weaken China, which Trump was doing. I mean, so it's like it's kind of crazy, but yeah, no, I feel your sentiment, brother.
It is, but I mean, Putin even said that if Trump gets back in office, that he'll come to the table and we'll end this whole conflict in Ukraine. And look at the relationship that he had with Kim Jong-un, for crying out loud. I mean, they were laughing and smiling. I don't think that you know, we'll ever see that level of cooperation again unless we get Donald Trump back in office, because the current installed administration, they're a bunch of warmongers. They want more war. And I cracks me up when people accuse Donald Trump of that. And my response is, really, if he's a warmonger, how come he's the only president in many, many decades that didn't have us involved in any wars, didn't start any wars? You know, he was the president of peace, for lack of a better term. So anyway, I'll move on to the last few articles I've got here. This is an article from bowhunting.com that speaks to why hunters should vote. And it's all the reasons we've covered, so I'm not going to go deep into it. I brought it up for a very specific reason, though. This is based on Hunt the Vote and not voteforamerica.org. So I didn't want people to think that this was all one-sided just because Jason's a friend of mine. And here's another article that hunters could decide the 2024 presidential election, and that's absolutely true. And hopefully we bring it home on Tuesday and overcome mountains of cheating. But here's an interesting one that I found while I was putting the brief together. Hunters and anglers for Harris Walls. And I don't see it myself. That's just me. We've all seen this video of Tim Walsh struggling with the Benelli shotgun that supposedly he's had for years. But this is an interesting point. I don't know if y'all caught this or not. So this particular person wrote an article. It says, did Tim Walsh's shotgun violate the Migratory Bird Treaty Act? The A400 Beretta XL sporting shotgun can hold 4 shells in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. Both Minnesota and federal law require hunters to use a plug to limit them to 2 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber. Violations include a $15,000 fine, 6 months in jail, and forfeiture of the firearm. Tim appears to have forgotten the plug. I thought that was kind of ironic. And just to show on the other side that that the Republicans, I recall it the MAGA side, I should say, hasn't been ignoring this. JD Vance has done a number of different podcasts, TV shows, interviews with people in the hunting and fishing community. So everybody's got eyes on this stuff, and everybody's aware that, you know, if you get the hunters, there's a pretty good chance you could probably win from there. So we have this thing at Survival Dispatch News, gentlemen, where we take something that's top of the news cycle, just like we're discussing tonight. We report on whatever the thing is. We editorialize whatever the thing is. But most podcasts stop there. And then you see a lot of comments from people that say, well, all I see are a bunch of talking heads. There's nothing for me to do. So since I acquired this company and started Survival Dispatch News, I've been pretty adamant that when we get to the end of an episode, that we give our audience tangible things that they can do to have a positive impact, whether it be on their own life or the country or whatever the cause may be. So I'm going to rhyme off a few of them that I wrote down that were in the brief. And then I'll come to you, Justin. We'll do the same order that we did before, and would love to hear if you have any thoughts. So the stuff that I wrote down, number one is to take a hunter or gun owner who doesn't normally vote to the polls with you on November 5th. We've been preaching Jason's message of take somebody, but now we're specifically honing in on hunters and gun owners. If you're a hunter or gun owner and you're not registered to vote, do it now if your state allows. And keep in mind, some states will allow you to register right up until election day. So make sure that if you're not registered, you don't think that you can't vote. Just check with somebody. Another thing that I've seen some people doing here in Florida is mega proponents sitting outside gun stores and gun ranges with the permission of the property owner to implore people to vote and let them know that their vote does matter. And the last action item I have is, and I repeat this one fairly frequently for our audience, is help share the truth. So share SDN, Survival Dispatch News, other truth tellers with your circle of friends and family, especially episodes like this where we're trying to get people out to affect positive change. Justin, suggestions on your part for things that the average person can do who maybe feels a little bit disenfranchised?
Yeah, I think you have a lot of good suggestions, what you brought up. I think getting your that uncle who doesn't vote out to vote, I think that's the most positive thing which any individual could do. If you can just get one person who doesn't vote out to the polls to vote for Trump, that would change the election.
100%. I couldn't agree more, Justin. Sean, we'll go to you second. You're on mute, Sean.
I second that. Yes, sir. I second that 100%. Just that one friend, that doesn't vote, get him out to vote. That vote is going to be the landslide victory. And like I said, I just want to encourage you, brother and sister out there that is out there. You love this country. You are a patriot. You are a red-blood American. And yes, you've been hurt, and yes, you've been harmed by the system. And there's so many things and the many grievances that we all feel again with this corrupt government cartel sitting on top of us and taxing us to death and destroying our currency, etc. And the list goes on and on and on. But at some point, we got to stand up and we got to save this country. And you are the key, my friend. You are the key. Our family came from North Korean communists, as I mentioned. Our whole family was genocided. There's no future in communism, no future in socialism, no future in centralized government. They control everything, censor you. They come after your family. They kill you. They torture you. They punish generations of your family. This is not a joke. It is not a test. This is here in America. It's being pushed and funded by the Rothschild, the BIS, Soros, all those names on that organization, Bill Gates, etc. That demonic-headed beast is here, and it is making digging its claws in, and we're the only ones that can stop it. You are the only ones. You are the key in this puzzle, and getting that one friend to the polls is the doubling effect. That's the double power, upgrade that we need as Americans to push that victory over the head, especially because they're going to cheat. So we believe in America. We believe in you, my friend. We believe that we will overcome this, but we've got to stand together and we've got to bring this victory home, and to God be all the glory.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Sean. I got to tell you, you're a fantastic orator. Not that I'm not impressed with anybody else's oratory skills, but clearly you've got some public speaking experience and you're really good at it. So I wanted to add that a couple more things that our audience can do to support the MAGA movement, because I'm reluctant to say Republicans anymore because they're just as corrupt as the Democrats. But one would be to support your ministry and the efforts that y'all have been putting forth, as well as supporting your music. And on the other side, supporting Justin's business and Kahr Arms. Not every gun company out there is a friend. And for anybody who's familiar with the shenanigans that have gone on in Illinois over the years, will know that Springfield Army, for example, went to the governor and said, hey, I want you to pass all these very restrictive laws so that it'll drive all the competition out of the state. And it got blown out, and they got a big black eye from it. So we can't just say everybody in the gun community is a good person or a good group, because it's not true. But clearly Justin is. So for people out there, especially those of us who have a really bad addiction to guns, you should add one from Kahr Arms to your collection.
I just need a little. I just need a little. Give me by.
Yeah,
it's not an addiction. I just need a little. Give me by.
There you go. So actually, I'm going to go to Craig and then S2, and then I'm going to come back to you at the end, Mike, for your suggestions, and then you can roll right into the conflicted question.
Okay.
Craig. Craig, you're up. You're on mute.
Sorry.
You're off mute.
Yeah,
No
there we go.
All good.
We're doing action items here.
Yeah, what your suggestions are for our audience and Americans in general.
Yeah. Well, swamp the vote. Hammer down. We've been here before, and I got to tell you, when we saw this happen in 2020, I was pretty disillusioned. My self-talk was, holy crap, voting is dead, right? Justice is dead. I mean, how are we going to, what do we do now? So the discussion that was earlier that Sean had brought up, that we've got to do everything we can to avoid the conflict, right? If there's a way that we can avoid it, we got to swamp the vote. We have to make it so ridiculously hard for them to commit the level of fraud they would have to commit. I mean, they've already committed fraud. Trump's not running against Kamala. He's running against election fraud, right? He's not running. Kamala is the patsy that they're putting up. She's the dog king, just like Biden, the worst president we've ever had in history, a fraudulent president, fraud administration, and they're the dog king. Are you familiar with that? Michael Yon talks about that. And there's a history of that. It's to demoralize a society. You put a complete idiot in charge. Someone else is running the show, but the dog king demoralizes the society. I can relate to your discussion about Putin, right? He's competent and he's well-spoken and he's a leader. And, it's relative to his country. It's relative to his people. But in terms of values, if I was to hold Kamala and him up, or Biden and him up, in terms of a value system, I would have more in common with Putin.
I get it.
Here we believe in faith, family, and freedom. Those are all the things that are under attack. Those are all things that communists infiltrate. And I can only speak to that from written history, right? I can't speak to that from experience. I can speak to, I can hear Justin and Sean discuss that, amongst others that I've talked to in recent history about that. And they're right. They've been right. And they're leading a great fight in Pennsylvania. They're leading a great fight all across this country. But we in terms of fighting the election fraud and fighting against the infiltration that we are experiencing right now, hunters, anglers, wranglers, whatever the group they all are, right? We have more in common with them than just maybe hunting. They have families. They believe in property rights, right? You can't hunt without property, right? They believe we have very similar values, and those are the things that are at stake, right? Hunting 100%. Is might be ultimately it's maybe a privilege right now. I don't know how you might say that, but if they decimate the family, if they decimate freedom and property rights, if they decimate our faith, hunters are generally faithful people, right? They have a faith, they have families, They believe in property rights, and those are the things that are at stake. And if they take those away, you can kiss your hunting goodbye and anything else that you might have a passion about. Right.
Well, speaking of passion, I actually just thought of another action item. You can get Craig's coffee at staybrewed.com so that you can run on 4 hours sleep a night and run on Staybrewed coffee the rest of the day for the win.
Because it is the booby prize for a bad night's sleep.
It sure is. S2, I'm coming to you after one question to Justin. Justin, I wanted to ask you, and it slipped my mind, I apologize. The precincts in Pennsylvania in 2020 where there was over 100% voter turnout, and I knew that there was some of that going on, but I will confess that I didn't follow up on it well. Did anything ever come of that, or it just the courts just let it slide completely?
No, they let it slide completely. I mean, the Supreme Court here in Pennsylvania is controlled by a Democratic majority, and basically they let the Democrats get away with everything. I mean, for example, redistricting in Pennsylvania, that's supposed to be done by the legislator and by the ruling party at the time. But the courts basically usurped the legislature and decided to redistrict by themselves, which is insane. So we have in Pennsylvania, there is a tremendous tyranny by the left-wing judges here in the state, and we're fighting tooth and nail to try to preserve what little liberty we have left. The one good thing that Pennsylvania does have is in the Constitution, in the Pennsylvania Constitution, we have a very strong Second Amendment. It says basically the right to bear arms should not even be questioned. It's actually written more stronger than it is in the U.S. Constitution.
The panel's probably sick of me saying this, but I've been saying this for several months now. I am convinced that our government is under the direct control of our enemies. It's the only way I can square all of their decisions that are anti-American across the board. And Mike, while you were gone, one of the examples I gave was we have Blinken on a Saturday says we've got 171 million that we're going to send to Lebanon. On the Sunday, he says, oh, we found another 80 million that we're going to send to Lebanon. And then on Monday, the 3 days in a row, the Fed say, if you're in financial distress in North Carolina, Tennessee, we'll give you $750, but you have to be in distress. And the only way I can square that is that our enemy is under the direct, or our government, pardon me, is under the direct control of our enemies. I don't know how anybody could say that they were a proud American could say otherwise. And I haven't discussed this with you guys, but everybody else is aware of this. Not one member of the Biden cabinet has a valid oath of office. And Todd Callender's researchers were the ones who uncovered that through multiple FOIAs. And so take, for example, like Merrick Garland, he sent his form in for his oath of office. It's not signed and notarized. Mayorkas sent his in, he signed it, but it's not notarized. And a bunch of other ones like Jack Smith, and he's not in the cabinet, of course, but he's a federal, part of the DOJ. He didn't file one at all. And the only explanation for that is that if we get Trump back in office, or somebody like Trump in the future back in office, if you are a government official and you get charged with sedition or treason, it's the death penalty. And that might get us kicked off of X, because I've been suspended off of X for making that very quote before. But we're at the point where we're just going to do whatever it takes to get the word out. But if you do not have a valid oath of office, you're an imposter. You're not a true government official. And the penalty for being an imposter of a government official is a maximum 5 years in prison. So the only explanation is that they're hedging their bets against a future administration, charging them with treason and sedition. So S2, apologize for the long wait there. Would love to hear your suggestions on what people can do in the next 48 to 72 hours to help get the vote out and win this thing.
Mine's going to be a little somewhat unique in some ways. First off, get your ass up off the sofa, go out there and vote. Get your ass up off the sofa, go down the street to your neighbors who are elderly or whatever you want to call them, stuck in their house. I'm sorry, my oratory skills are not very good tonight because we're jumping all over the place and thoughts are not coming very quickly. But The other thing that I would say is that if, on the offhand chance, which is very good, that the Congress pulls off this stunt that they think they're going to be able to pull with the 14th Amendment, and they are able to keep Trump out of the White House, they're able to foment violence to a point of where they think they need to implement the military on the streets. I would also suggest ahead of time of getting some of your supplies and keeping them off site from your home, because when the jackboots come, and they will, they're going to take everything you have. They're going to take your guns. They're going to take your food. They're going to take your ammunition. Have at least one firearm off site and not someplace very common, and get some of your supplies and keep those off site. Get a 55-gallon drum with a sealed top on it and stuff all your stuff in that, and take that thing out somewhere and bury it, or put it in some remote storage facility, because I'm telling you, if this happens, you're going to need that. Those are my suggestions.
Good suggestions. Good advice. Absolutely. Mike, your answers for suggestions and the conflicted question, we'll put a wrap on this.
Okay. Well, first of all, want to thank everybody out there in the audience for showing up tonight. We absolutely love you all, but you're a great disappointment to your other parents and I. Nobody's mashing that thumbs up button. Come on, I want to see some like buttons smashed. Don't be a disappointment to your parents. Looking at you. Looking at you. Anyway, all right. 100% S2 kind of nailed that. Yeah, making sure that all your eggs are not in one basket is a thing. I agree. Don't necessarily agree with his method of caching, but that's okay. We've got different experience now, don't we? The big thing, go ahead, grab people, grab your friends, grab your neighbors. But the big thing is, all these years, the light has, us shining a light on this evil. Evil exposes itself. I mean, it's happy to do that. It wants to be seen, but all we're doing is shining a light on it for our fellow Americans to be able to see it for what it actually is. Now, there's a bunch of them that are never going to understand it for what it is. They've lived in their bubble their entire lives. We can get to as many of them as we can, but there's some of them you're just not going to reach. And that's all there is to it, because some men you just can't reach, which is why you get what we had here last week. But
failure to communicate.
Right, a failure to communicate. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing, work on your local officials, right? Start working with the local officials. If the local officials are the same as you, trust me, a lot of this won't be necessary.
Good
That's
advice,
all I have
Mike.
to say about that.
All right, let's do this conflict question and wrap her up.
Okay, conflicted question of the day. Just a few hours ago, martial law was declared in your state. Through your network, you learned that the local police and military have begun door-to-door confiscation of firearms for purposes of keeping the peace. Within the day, they will be in your neighborhood. With your specific personnel and group preparations in mind, how would you organize and handle the coming gun confiscation?
S2, I'm going to go to you first this time. Since we don't have Jeff.
I figured you were.
Right.
I figured you were. Well, I already kind of hit on it. Is that what is it? I forget what the old adage is. Chance favors a prepared mind.
Right.
As I said, and Mike, that was a very basic caching suggestion, by the way. I know better. But I don't think I'm going to be too worried about that at that point in time, because all of my stuff, or I'm going to have some junk firearms on hand that they come to the house and be like, yeah, you want that airsoft gun? Sure. Here they are. Go ahead. Take that. Oh yeah. And you want that high point that I got? Yeah, you can have that one too. Okay. There you go. That's all I got. Have a nice day.
Bucket O high points. No, not my throwdown guns, please.
Hey, you can say what you want about high points, but the one that I've got is one of the originals it was made, and it still shoots accurate, and it still has a lifetime warranty on it.
I still want to eat Canone.
Justin, what are your thoughts in this type of situation where the jackboots are coming for everybody's guns?
Well, I think if you have a second home in a safe red state, which would succeed from the union if they ever tried to do that, would probably be your best bet. But if you don't have any place to go, if they're going to come for your guns, guns are not the only thing they're going to take from you. They're going to take your life and put you in a camp. So you really have a choice. You either can die in a camp or go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good answer, Justin. I don't disagree. Sean, the AR-15 pastor, lay it on us.
Well, it's interesting. This kind of reminds me, I just like a tangent, but Alex had a Navy SEAL on, and he was talking about Alex Jones had a Navy SEAL on the other day, and he was talking about, Biden says, well, we have F-15s, you guys have AR-15s, won't do anything. And what the Navy SEAL was saying was, no, we, in unconventional guerrilla warfare, we don't go after the F-15s. We go after the wives, the children. We go after all your support structure. And that's how you stop the F-15. But that kind of reminded me of that tangent. But like Justin was saying, I mean, there's no way around it when they're coming, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn said in the Gulag Archipelago, talking about when he was commenting on if there was people that just would even pick up a shovel and there were millions more individuals, people, citizens than there were the jackboot thugs. And if even they pulled out shovels or even shoes and just filled the corridors with bodies and just resistance, the press towards tyranny would be stultified. It would be completely shut down. And I think that's the power that people forget. They may be able to take out 1, 2, 3 patriots but each injustice they lay upon the people in such manner, and these things get out, people's resolve only gets stronger. The Holy Spirit swells within us even more strongly, and righteousness rises up in our hearts. And I think the fear then starts fading away. The more injustice that they perpetrate against the people, the more the just power of God starts rising up within us. So I think just as a whole, individually, of course, there's nothing, you got to go, like Justin said, you have to go in a pile of brass or you're going to go in the oven, but I just want to encourage, like on the macro meta kind of picture of it, that the people who have been through these type of revolutions say that you have to take the bird's eye view. If you as a people stand up strong and like our forefathers did in 1776, centralized evil is much more slow. It's much more, they have to wait for orders to move. It's like the big robots in Star Wars, that they started like the little gremlins from the forest. I can't remember the names. And they were just like wrapping their feet, like wire. They just had wire around these, tripping these big things down, because like it's like a metaphor. Like the centralized governments always move very slowly, and everybody's so political inside them. They're scared to make the wrong move, otherwise they get fired, etc. Whereas the people that are standing up against them, the guerrilla fighters, so to speak, they've never been defeated. The Navy SEAL and Alex Jones was saying this, like even the U.S. military, we tried to defeat the Afghanis. They handed it to the Russians. They handed it to the U.S. in flip-flops and AKs. I mean, it's the resolve and spirit of the people. And I think that's what they don't want us to know, and that's what they don't want us to remember. But, I think if the people have the strong will and resolve, there is nothing that can defeat the founding spirit of America. This is God's gift to this land, and we have it all within us. Every single American, we have it. And it's just a matter of, that being stimulated and being pulled out to the forefront. And I think it's happening. I think it is rising up.
Great answer, Sean. When S2 was mentioning, give them some crappy guns. It reminded me of this guy here. So this guy repeatedly made guns out of, cast iron pipe and stuff like that. And every time he'd take one to this county buyback, he'd get $50, $100, $300, whatever it was. And then there were follow-up videos to the videos of him selling them to the authorities, where he'd go and buy brand new guns with the money that he got from his fake guns that cost him like $10 to manufacture. And then there was another guy who did it with 3D printed guns. I think it was in New York, and he got $21,000 out of them for non-functional 3D printed guns, which was pretty brilliant. So
he was just selling frames.
Yeah, kudos. Well, good for him. Craig, what are your thoughts? The authorities are coming to get your guns.
Yeah, if it's a declaration of martial law, I'm with Jeff MD on this. There's no martial law is not in the Constitution.
That's right.
We're going to war. If we have advance notice, we're going to make preparations. We're going to go to war with a tyrannical government. I'm not giving them crap. I'm with Justin. I'm with Sean. I'm with whoever wants to stand up and take our country back. Because if we're in a, I can say with confidence that we're in a solid red state. Even if we weren't, the circumstances would have to be so dire as far as the state of our country. I'm not losing them. I'm not burying them. They're loaded. They are at my disposal, and we're going to war. If they're coming for the guns, it's over.
I had a client. Yeah, I had a client several years ago say something when the ATF were doing knock and talks on, bump stocks and FRTs and all that stuff. And somebody said, we were having lunch together, said, well, what happens when they, it's not a knock and talk and they come to take the guns? And his response was, well, probably after the third or fourth shooting incident, that'll be the end of that. And nobody's going to want to volunteer to be the agents to come and collect guns.
I don't think they'll make it too far. I
think Mike has an answer for that. I think Mike has an answer for all of this beside him right now, because I know what that is.
So, Mike, your answer for the conflicted question, and that's it. We're done. You're on mute, Mike.
You're on mute, Mike.
You guys are adorable. You're going to bring guns.
I didn't say that was all I had.
Just saying, I am blessed to live in a very red part of a very red state. I am not worried about it. I've got 45 miles of redneck shield around me. Go ahead. Come on. If you finally get to me, yeah, just go ahead, qualify me as the final boss of that one. Because it's not going to look
winner
good.
take all.
Yeah. No. Hey, thanks for bringing me all those cool new guns, though. I appreciate it. Oh, and the Bearcat? Oh, that was nice of you guys. I know how to fix one of those. Yeah. No.
Fair enough. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate everybody's time and input tonight. And for everybody else out there, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And God bless America.
Love you.